Kristyglass here with a finished object for you. It's a very special finished object because it is from my Iceland adventures. The first stop I went to was the Hipsum mini mill. This is how you spell it. And I was drawn to the wool. I wasn't sure what I wanted to make. I knew I didn't want to make a sweater, but sometimes when I'm indecisive, a kit is the thing. So on this table next to the window where all the sheep were grazing on the land, there were these kits for this Hipsum Haps shawl, and this is just an example, and she actually showed this shawl to me in the shop, but I think it was maybe opposite colors. Maybe it was dark on the top and light on the bottom. This is by Maja Siska, M-A-J-A space S-I-S-K-A, and I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting myself into, but when you read the cover page, it really clues you in on what's going on. So it says, design your own shawl with this simple but effective Hipsum Haps method. You choose the pattern and size, or let the yarn decide, a fun project to get your creativity working. Hipsum Haps is Icelandic, meaning without a plan, any which way. So I didn't know that. I feel like I've heard other terms like that, and I had no idea this was like an Icelandic term. So on the front, it said 100 grams should make a shawl, and the circular needle will be a size 7. So on my trip, I happened to have a size 7 needle on my interchangeables and an extra cord. So I borrowed that from the project I had been working on the trip to cast on right away. I had spent some extended time with Steven of Steven West, or West Knits, and I noticed that he just really lets the yarn and the needles and his imagination decide what he knits. He doesn't really knit other people's patterns. So it was really inspiring to me, and I thought, you know, I just need to cast on this trip too. I don't need to just knit the things that I brought. I'm going to cast on this wool. I will insert a photo of what it looked like before. So it's these 5 skeins, 2 dark, 2 light, and a pop of pink. And I just had my little guide here, just a few pages of Hipsum Haps. And I started with the beginning, which was number B. Did I just say number? Letter B in the pattern is the beginning. And I started and I knit for quite some time before I realized this doesn't look right. And I took a picture of that too. So I had just put my increases in the wrong place, so I put them all in the center and none on the sides. So it was growing in this really funny shape. It kind of looked like a crest or something. So I had to frog completely back, and then I realized, yes, this looks right. Sometimes I don't think while I'm knitting, I'm just reading and interpreting it on a certain level that's maybe not the right level. This happens to me a lot, and I don't always doubt the pattern, I'm just doubting the whole situation. Like, is it me? Is it the pattern? What's going on here? And finally, when I sat back to think about it, I went, it makes more sense that those increases are elsewhere. So I just started knitting, and I did let the yarn decide. And every time I sort of got to what I thought should be a new section, I just sort of went for it. And I did not frog back after that. So here's the finished piece. This is my Hipsum Haps shawl. And you can see it's smaller on the edges, and then it grows. Hopefully you can see some of my stitch definition. Now this wool is Icelandic, which means it has quite a bit of halo, I think is a good word for it. And it has some shine to it. There's a bit of a shimmer to it. And this wool is from the Hipsum mill. And I interviewed Hildu, which her interview will be coming up on my channel. If you haven't already seen it, I will link to it underneath this video. It might not be live the day this video comes out, but it will be live eventually, so it will be good to have the link underneath here. And she showed me in her mini mill that that Icelandic wool has 2 different sections. So there's the longer wool section on the outside, and then the softer on the inside that sort of insulates and keeps the sheep warm. And she works hard to separate the 2 so that her yarn is more of the soft yarn, or at least there's a ratio of some, maybe both. Whereas some of the lopi that you buy in the other shops, they have everything in there. So they're even like more like rough, scratchy. And this wool is a scratchy wool. I mean, to someone who's not, educated in wool and yarn, they say that's scratchy. And it can kind of go on the outermost layer. But some people wear it next to the skin. And I have blocked this. It was very simple to block because it's such a nice like fingering slash almost a lace weight yarn. And it's fine. It is not bothering me against my skin at all. Like, I think it's great. And I think it's going to be really warm, but it's going to be nice that it has that light texture to it and the warmth at the same time. So I'm pretty thrilled about this. Now let me tell you about the pattern, like what I did. It's not, you know, it's not anything so exciting, but I started with a little seed stitch right here. I knew I wanted the pink throughout, so I decided to make the pink kind of my dividing section leader so that there was always pink in it. This really reminds me of Neapolitan ice cream or licorice. Can you picture that? So I did a little yarn over lacy situation here with the pink and the brown. Then I went into baubles that I just sort of made up and put wherever I wanted them to go. Another yarn overy lacy pink section, followed by some brioche. I had to pull out my exploration station pattern for the brioche because I haven't done brioche in a long time. And there are some mistakes, but in general, I feel like it even kind of increased. I was pretty proud of my brioche effort here in the middle. Then some more pink. Then this, I just did basic stockinette and then divided it every 5 rows or so with a row of garter. So you can kind of see that. Another, just 1 row of pink, just a tiny little row. Then I did some eyelet. And it's not perfect, but it has a bit of a pattern going on. It's a little imperfect, but I really didn't care. It was just about the experience. Then I have, like, this is definitely the Neapolitan ice cream section with these horizontal rows of all 3, followed by a little more eyelet, and then the picot bind off. When endeavoring to do a project like this, especially when you're getting towards the end, it's really important to make use of a scale. I have a very simple food scale that I use to weigh yarn. And when you get to the longer rows, you should weigh your yarn before you start, knit the row, and then weigh it after and subtract. That's how you know approximately how much wool is being used for the row. So this is all I have left. I'm pretty proud of how much I used. I used basically all of it because these would not have, this might have done 1 more row. Maybe this, but not these 2, definitely not. And what was a really good tip in the pattern is it said that a picot edge bind off uses 3 to 4 times as much yarn as a regular row. So even though I had a ton of brown, I was looking at it going, I think all I can do, just based on the weight and that technique that I was just telling you, I think all I can do is 1 row of garter and then 1 row of picot bind off. And yeah, I made it with just a little bit left. So I was really proud of that achievement, that I didn't have any yarn chicken moments because I was using the scale. And it's sort of a sampler, you know, it's fun to just go and see what it's going to be. And I really did not have a plan. I think you could definitely sketch it out first and decide, okay, this is what this section will be and this is what this section will be. But I really enjoyed just going for it. And I cast it on my trip. I knit on it most of the day on Sunday because that was my day of rest. And then I knit on it the entire flight home and finished it just the next day after I got home and even blocked it. So this is my Icelandic project. I had no idea it was on the pipeline, but I discovered this beautiful mini mill and her yarn, and you can get some too. She does not have an online shop per se, but you can easily email her or contact her through Facebook. So if you would like some of her gorgeous, beautiful Icelandic wool, she has lots of varieties, lots going on, and I will show you a tour of her little shop on this channel. You can get some of your own Icelandic wool as well. And of course, I highly recommend it because it was such a joy to work with. Thank you so much, as always, for checking into Kristy Glass Knits. You can find links for everything I talked about underneath this video. You can also follow me on Instagram at Kristy Glass Knits. See you over there too. Bye. Honey, you can't make spoon noises. Babe.